Hello everyone, welcome Eric.
Thank you.
What a great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for being here, really. We are delighted to hear your talk about digital transformation mainly. You have an amazing track record in the luxury industry and an amazing international experience. You have worked at Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior Couture, Richemont and other very prestigious companies. And it's in late 2019 that you joined the Rémy Cointreau Group as CEO. Rémy Cointreau is a family-owned group that was created in 1724. It's been a while, and that now owns many brands of cognac, malt, gins, rums, and liquor, as you've seen on the video, such as Rémy Martin, Louis XIII, Cointreau, the Botanist, XIII, amazing brands. Under your leadership, and despite a complex economic and international environment, 2019 was a strange year to arrive as a CEO, these brands have grown internationally. Your products transpire exceptional values like terroir authenticity, caring about people and nature, promoting quality and excellentness. You keep pushing the environmental values of the group, as it was named the most responsible French company in the agri-food sector, according to Le Point magazine study published a few months ago. You recently announced that within 10 years, more than 20% of your turnover will be generated through e-commerce. We can't wait to hear your vision on how your business model will evolve, how your organization is impacted and how you make it evolve, how you lead the digital transformation of the Rémy Cointreau Group. To discuss all these topics with you today, I am delighted to be hosting this live session with Loïc, our managing director for Europe and Asia, and whose parents run a family vineyard in Moulis, en Médoc, next to Bordeaux, so kind of family. And Margot, CRM and data acquisition manager, who worked at on the Louis XIII awarded experience and in charge of Rémy Cointreau campaigns. Eric Vallat, welcome and thank you again for being with us today. As we said in the intro, our road lead to Rome. What a journey! Can you first tell us how did you land in the spirit universe?
By chance, you know, like I landed by chance in the luxury sector at the beginning. I was looking for, at that time, this was 25 years ago, but still, I was in the banking sector, which was a mistake, but it happens. It took me 3 years to realize. I was not quick at that time, but I wanted something, in the field, a managerial experience, which you don't get at school. And I was about to go to Kazakhstan for Bouygues, a construction company. And in fact, my wife went pregnant and Kazakhstan was not the ideal situation, so I landed in the field, Avenue Montaigne in Paris, so not exactly the same kind of experience, in a Louis Vuitton store as a store manager. And from there, I grew up in the companies you listed. And in fact, I got to know Dominique Herrière-Dubreuil, who was the president of the board of Rémy Cointreau Group at that time, through Comité Colbert. And she proposed me, this was 9 years ago, because I quit and came back to Rémy Cointreau, who proposed me to take the helm of the house of Rémy Martin, the cognacs, Louis XIII, notably. And I was tempted, and I joined, and I must say I was fascinated by the strong relationship to terroir of the group, which is one of the elements that attracted me.
So thank you very much, Eric. Again, welcome. Now let's talk about our key topic for today, digital transformation. The spirits industry is quite specific, especially with a lot of regulations, complex international environment. So in this context, what are the main challenges for the digital transformation of the spirits industry?
So as you pointed out, it's a specific category, and wine and spirits, specific business with a lot of legal constraints. And that, in fact, result in the fact that we are very far away from the client for legal reasons first. For instance, if you take the US, in the US, it's inherited from the prohibition period, but you cannot sell yourself your products. So you can ship them to the US, but then they are handled by distributors who sell to wholesalers, who sell to retailers, who sell to clients. So between us and the client, it's a big gap. And this is not helping when it comes to being sensitive to clients' insights, because we're very far from the client. Law is not helping also on digital communication, by the way, talking about legal, because many countries are black markets, meaning they forbid any communication on alcohol, which is not pushing for digital communication. Social networks are very much controlled. There's a controversy now in France, by the way, so, and ourselves, of course, we have to push for responsible consumption, so it's quite a tricky topic. But for me, the main reason is not legal. In fact, if you think about us, for those who have seen the film, which I always find very moving, you can see that we are wine growers in cognac, we are planters in Barbados, we are agricultors in Scotland, and this is our genes. So we are passionate about products, we make great products. We're not necessarily good at selling them, originally speaking. I mean, it's not what we are made of. We are very far again from the end client. And so for us, there's quite a gap that we need to bridge, and that is something we need to build on. And the other challenge, I think, is our relationship to time. I don't know if you know that, for instance, a product like Louis XIII will take from 40 to 100 years plus to craft. The youngest eau de vie that go into Louis XIII are 40 years old, meaning that the eau de vie that today our cellar master is selecting for potentially Louis XIII, if they age nicely, they will be selected by one of his successors to be Louis XIII. So for us, time is a raw material. We value time and we value slowliness. And when you speak of digital, you speak of speed. So it's not so easy for us. There's a kind of cultural shock that we need to handle. But I also believe that because we are late as an industry, because we are probably slow, and slow is not necessarily easy, but because we are slow, being probably not the pioneering industry, it can be an opportunity as well. Because, you know, I remember when I was in Portugal in 93, 94, long ago again, but at that time, for the younger listening to us, there were no credit cards. Credit cards were already in France, well developed. France was a pioneering country for credit cards. But in Portugal, there was nothing. So you had to pay everything cash. But in fact, in 1 year, they went directly to step 3, while France was still stuck with its step 1. So if we manage to learn from what exists, probably we can catch up and even gain versus some other industries. Because again, we're not stuck with a model that is outdated or that has to evolve quickly.
So thank you very much for sharing that. I guess it's quite difficult or challenging to balance speed and slowliness. And we can see that digital transformation comes with massive impacts. And talking about impacts, how did digital transformation impact your own organization, the Rémy Cointreau Group?
So I think it impacted us in a classic way, meaning, of course, the need to hire a new expertise to start with. But the expertise is useless if it's not leveraged within our ecosystem, within our organization. So it's also, in fact, about upskilling, training, and I must say I underestimated that. And it starts by training the COMEX, because if the top management is not aligned or does not get it, it's not going to work anyway. So, but this is classic, it's not specifically our industry. I would say also that, of course, it is probably indeed driving agility. Anyway, we're in a world which is calling for agility, because I think it's easier to plan the next 10 years than the next 6 months anyway. So you need to be agile, but it's bringing a culture of agility, which is interesting for us, and also a culture of measurement and ROI, because it's easier in digital to measure. And so I think it's also something that probably we were not necessarily accustomed to. But again, I would like to insist that the main change is that it has put the client at heart of our organization. We were far from it, as you have understood. I'm not going to repeat myself here, but and in fact, it's probably the first opportunity we have to engage a direct dialogue with our clients, even though we do not necessarily sell to them. And then it created opportunities that are driving the organization. It's new routes to market, because directly or indirectly, all of a sudden, you move from a classic retail, indirect retail, to in some countries, direct digital sales. So it's a big move. So that's one element also that I think is impacted us, and it's very good because we need to move from, let's say, product-driven culture to client culture and client-centric culture, but also to a client-centric model, which is very different from the client-centric culture, and something, of course, that digital is accelerating.
Sure, and digital is accelerating, and the COVID crisis as well, perhaps, it impacts everybody, but it accelerated a lot of things in your industries and for all industries, and as you said, your DNA was different perhaps from what we see classical industries in digital. So how you describe the impacts for Rémy Cointreau of this COVID crisis and acceleration?
Maybe I should start from the trends emerging from COVID and see how they impact us with a digital perspective. But if I look at the trends that emerged in our business, one trend is the growing interest for cocktails, for instance. Cocktails were a kind of mythical thing that people felt is complicated to do, it takes time. But in fact, during the pandemic, people had time. And they started learning and enjoying doing cocktails themselves. And for instance here, this has accelerated digital for us because you start doing tutorials, you cannot do them physically, and you discover the power of remote tutorials, and you start working on a new way of addressing this topic. So that's one trend. Another trend could be, for instance, the trend of home consumption that has been outpacing any other growth over the past 3 years, obviously. And this is interesting for us also, and from a digital perspective as well, because in fact, what you can say is that when people consume at home, and while they are looking for more comfort, convenience, obviously e-commerce becomes a critical topic. And here I wouldn't say that the crisis, the pandemic has accelerated digital and e-commerce. I would say that it has revolutionized e-commerce. If you take the US, for instance, we were probably doing 1% of our business in e-commerce, and we are now 8 9% in 2 years' time. It was a non-topic because of this very classic many layers inherited from the three-tier system inherited from prohibition. So this has been a sharp acceleration, more than an acceleration for us, a game changer. Another trend could be the upgrading trend, because people had more money to allocate to things that they could consume at home. And if they allocate more money, it means also combined with the trend of drinking less but better, which is a long-term trend, they are upgrading. And if they upgrade, it means we sell higher price points products, so we get better margins, so there is more we can reinvest behind our route to market, behind e-commerce, and so on. Another trend, for instance, is a growing interest of health matter, which in our business is obviously something that is quite critical. And in fact, people are looking for more transparency, more information, and there's as much as you can put on a label, but then, you know, if you can, with a QR code, put more information, we know it's growing in importance. I have 3 daughters who are 28, 25, and 22, even though I'm very young, but got them very early. But and I can see their growing interest indeed in knowing what they are buying and why they are buying it. So values matter more and so on. So that's another angle that I think is also driving an acceleration of digital in general, and that is not going to stop overnight for sure. Inflation might slow down the upgrading, but it's still a long-term trend that will not disappear. And the last one is probably less obvious, but if I'm trying to make a link, is the growing local pride. you know, which for global brands is quite a challenge. And if you want to be relevant locally, there are many ways. You can have a local product, which is not possible for us, because 98% of what we produce is in France, and 98% of what we sell is outside of France. So this is not something we can do. But then you can start working on your communities, local communities, through digital as well, obviously, creating a sense of belonging and a sense of not local origin, but at least local relevance, which I think is also something that digital is enabling at a much faster pace than the classic model we had. Before, when we were introducing our products, we used to organize sessions, tasting sessions, 30 by 30. So imagine how we can leverage now with everything we can do remotely, because on top of that, people have gotten used to remote activities ourselves. I travel much less than before COVID, and it's for the planet, but it's also because I discovered that you can work differently.
Yeah. So yeah, important trends that are for this part interesting regarding your DNA, because quality of product and I mean, which is more and more important. It's in your brand's DNA from day one, and so it's an amazing strength for future as well.
Yes, I think I really believe strongly in this trend of drinking less but better. And our genes are indeed about doing a great product. And it dates back, not necessarily to 1724, to be totally honest, but to 100 years ago, when in fact the great-grandfather of our existing shareholders decided, for instance, for our cognacs, to focus only, there are 6 crus in cognac, and he decided to focus only on the 2 most prestigious crus, because they have a better aging potential. So this was already a choice for quality 100 years ago, which is very early. And probably 50 or 60 years ago, the grandfather of our current shareholders, he said, okay, because I have a liquid that ages nicely, I'm going to stop VS, which is the 2 years old of cognac and the entry price point. At that time, VS was 80% of the business. And he said, I'm going to stop. I'm going to focus on the high end. So for us, indeed, I think these trends are favorable to us, with the inflation playing a bit against it, but still, in the long run, I believe we have a winning strategy, and I can say it because I'm not the one who invented it, but it's something that is deeply rooted in the group. Yeah.
And it's a perfect link to Margot's presentation. Margot, you will present operation you worked on a lot for Louis XIII, and especially on a recent huge event that you will explain to us right now. And it will allow us to focus on really high-value clients, which is a very interesting topic, and I think you are very impressive in this digital marketing area. So, Margot?
Thank you, Isolis. So, yeah, you have just released your latest limited edition product, Rare Cask 42.1. Only 775 decanters created, a wonder of nature, selected exclusively by your cellar master Baptiste Loiseau, 10 years after the last Rare Cask. Louis XIII had several challenges to meet with this new release. First one, reinforce the brand's elitist position, then create a platform that could reflect this exceptional event, and finally, collect 100% of the data from future buyers. So, we have decided to work together to create a unique platform in 2 sections. First one, a public section, which highlights the history of Rare Cask 42.1 and describes its design and what it involves. All this with immersive visual effects for the user to dive into the whole experience. And second, a private section reserved exclusively for Louis XIII members, Louis XIII decanter owners, allowing them to express their wish to purchase this unique decanter. Once this wish has been made, the client receives an email confirming that Louis XIII has taken his wish into account, and if he wants to discuss it with a private client director, he can just click on the email and be called back. This is a great representation of the high-value treatment and the high-value treatment, VIP and tailor-made treatment you are offering to your high-value clients. So maybe could you tell us a bit more about your secret recipe?
Well, the first secret recipe is Louis XIII. I think we are very lucky to have Louis XIII in our portfolio. I joined from the luxury sector, and I joined because of Louis XIII as well. I forgot to say, but it's one of a kind in the industry. Probably the only brand that everybody would envy us because it's unique. And if you want to create a Louis XIII, it takes 40 years from now. So a huge barrier entry barrier. And plus, we started 150 years ago soon. So we have a patrimony and we have a history. And I believe that with Louis XIII, we can probably pioneer the industry when it comes to D2C relationship. So I said we are late as an industry, but with Louis XIII, we can aim at knowing 100% of our clients within the next 10 years. Because in fact, it's about value, it's not about quantity, it's about exceptional clients. It's, for those who don't know, it's $4,000 in the US, for instance, a decanter. Obviously, rare cask is much more expensive, but more than 10 times more. So that's point one. Point two is rare cask is truly unique. Myself, you know, I've never witnessed a rare cask until now, and it's not every 10 years. It happens when it happens. It's ready when it's ready. And it's the secret of the cellar master. I've chased him this morning. I was in Cognac. Where is the future rare cask? And he would never tell me. Plus, he doesn't know today because it's really about how nature is working on the aging and delivering a special potential in one of the casks that becomes rare cask. So there will be other rare casks, but it might be in 5 years as well as in 20 years. We have no clue. And so with Louis XIII, we are probably pioneering, and we have exceptional clients. It's the equivalent, a cognac of this price or of this positioning is the equivalent of a 25,000 euros watch. So it's very, very high end. And so it allows for many things. I would say that when it comes to VIP treatment, what is the recipe? I'm not sure there is only one recipe, but ours is first a data-driven strategy. Even though it's not big numbers in terms of clients, but I think, you know, this reminds me when I was at Louis Vuitton, a store manager, I refer to like in 95, 96, and 97. We organized events for our clients. And in fact, after 6 months, I realized that always the same clients were coming. Because in fact, everybody has his own list. And you think of the people you know, you think of the people you like. We're all human, so we have the memory we have the affect we have. And there was absolutely no objectivity in the selection of the clients. So we would meet great clients who are discreet, who buy a lot, and we would invite the ones that we like and so on. So I think data is putting a bit of objectivity in the way we select our clients, which is important. And it's not only objectivity, it's also obviously getting to know them better. So affinity. For instance, you know, at Louis XIII, we do a lot of partnerships with other luxury brands, whether it's car luxury industry or high-end watches. But, you know, they are useless if they don't fit the expectations of our clients. So it's objectivity and knowledge. So that's the number one element. It's a data-driven strategy, which is new for us, again, because data we had little access to until 6 or 7 years ago. I come from retail, so obviously I was very sensitive to this, but it's new. So that's one element. I would say the second one is probably being generous somehow, meaning not looking for an immediate payback for such a kind of luxury brand. I think it's first a matter of proposing one-of-a-kind experiences, money can buy experiences, that are a way to build a unique relationship with our clients, to create value in this relationship, immaterial value, but so much valuable. And of course, it has to fit the needs, which is why you need the data, but it's very important that we create this, we customize the experiences, and so on. So that's the second one, is being generous and not looking necessarily solely at the payback for these kind of clients, for sure. which is not obvious, because we are all also financially driven. We are indeed family driven, which is a great asset, but we're also a listed group, and so we do also have our short-term challenges. And the last one is respecting the client, meaning, making sure the frequency is right of the contacts, making sure also that it's a one-to-one relationship, which is why we have private client directors. When we created the private client directors team 7 or 8 years ago, it was a first of a kind in the industry. It's like the grand vendeur in jewelry. And this one-to-one relationship is very important. And we could feel it because we launched Rare Cask 10 days ago, maybe now, in Venice, where we gathered 200 of our best clients worldwide with some press, but very little press. And in fact, they all felt like, and we all felt that we were belonging to a family. So this sense of belonging is also very important. It's not only about pride, it's also about feeling part of a community that gives you access also to very exclusive services, products. Because Rare Cask, for instance, we have only 775 indeed. So we have many more clients than products. So it's really about making sure that we address the right people, and these people get the exclusivity the others wouldn't get.
And as far as I understand, in your vision, data can drive emotions. So rationality and emotions are not opposed at all, and data can help to bring more emotions and attachment to the brand.
You know, this reminds me, it's like when in 96, I think we launched the first, I was the head of Europe, 97 for Vuitton, and we launched the first e-commerce, and all the store managers were going crazy, you're going to steal my clients, and we were opposing them, and in fact, those who buy on e-commerce are the ones who buy more in stores as well. Sometimes you recruit through e-commerce, but it's always a 360 experience in the end. And same here, you know, I don't think we should oppose them for sure. I believe that data alone is useless. I believe that emotion alone is less efficient. Not useless, but less efficient for sure. But we are also in a product which is driven, you know, it's a business for people who like people. It's a business for people who like celebrating, sharing. This is what our products are about. So, in fact, there's a lot of emotion anyway in everything we do.
Yeah. And in fact, the digital enable us to get closer and closer to the client, as you just said. And in the future, how you see that? What are for you the emerging trends in terms of client relation in your industry?
I'm not sure it's specific to our industry, by the way, but we see retail emerging. We started, I think we were the first ones to open as well with Ritres. And by the way, we opened in a fashion floor, so just showing our clients are the same as the big luxury brands. So it was in China, and it was quite a daring move, and we struggled to have people understand what we wanted to do. They always wanted to put our boutique in the food and beverage area, and we fought for this. So retail is emerging. You see a lot of brands now going for retail, and I would say that we even see, like in fashion, but private rooms, private apartments, private stores, not necessarily open to everyone. You see them rising as a growing interest. I think it comes from the fact that if you go back to the 70s, when people were buying luxury, they were buying status. So they were mostly interested in the logo. At that time, I was in a store, and honestly, we were selling Louis Vuitton monogram to people who were really proud to show that they were. I'm not saying this has disappeared, but it has accumulated with other expectations. Then came beyond the logo, the interest for quality. And then beyond the interest for quality, the interest for experiences, hence retail, and values. Also, I want to buy a brand that reflects my values and so on. So I think this is an emerging trend that we cannot ignore, that we can address partly through retail, because you know it's the only way where you can express the values of your brand, the messages, and so on. And it's also a great way also to enhance exclusivity if the boutique is, for instance, for Maison, we created a perfume brand maybe 6 months ago now, which is called Maison Psyché, which is a brand that is probably the first, one of the first innovations since long in perfume and cosmetics, because the idea was, what about aging a perfume that has been designed for that in one of our barrels in cognac, and see what happens, because what happens with the eau de vie is that it reinforces the spin column of the product and the opulence, the richness, and so on. So we tested a lot of perfumes, and we aged. We tested a lot of aging length and so on. And so we ended up having a great product that is creating a new craft in the industry, because it's about aging a perfume, which is very new, creating new essences. And we are actually selling it in an apartment that is a secret place. And so we only invite clients there, and we have a 98% conversion rate. And I think it's two reasons. One, it's the experience itself, the innovation. It's a true innovation. If you create a brand, you better innovate. If you don't innovate, it's more difficult. But it's also the exclusive experience, the fact that they know it's not for everybody. And so, you know, sometimes you have to choose. Louis Vuitton has managed to do both, but it's not given to everyone. And at least as a starting point. So that's point one, is retail. Then I think you could say also that scarcity, which I just referred to with retail, can also target the younger crowd now with NFTs and stuff like this, which I think is also a way somehow to enhance scarcity in a very different way that is probably more appealing for the younger crowd, and that I think is also of interest. And maybe then, participative luxury. I was referring to the sense of belonging, communities. It's interesting to see that more and more the clients want to be part of the story. They want to contribute to the product, to the values, and this is a drastic, massive change that is for me partly driven by communication, by digital, by the way, because the big change for me with digital is that we've moved from a world which was very top-down communication. At that time, we were spending tons of money in advertising, and the brand was delivering the message, and everybody would buy into it. But now, with the social networks, with everybody knows everything about every brand, plus everybody gives his opinion, and the opinion of the people, the clients, your peers, matter more than what the brand tells you. So I think that it's very important. This participative luxury is something that is going to grow. Whether it's a collaborative approach on the product, whether it's a collaborative approach on an event, or there are many ways of going for it, but I think it's something that you cannot ignore. You don't turn your back to the future, and I think it's part of our future, which is a challenge for luxury brands, because you like to keep the mystery as well. You don't want to disclose everything. Not that you want to hide it because you're not proud of it, you're very proud of it, but if you lose the mystery, if everybody knows about it, you lose value.
So you mentioned innovation by placing candles in barrels. That's an interesting way we should try also. How about data? How do you leverage data to also innovate?
So it's still a long way to go, to be honest. I'm not sure, probably like many others, but what I believed 3 years ago is not what I believe today. The organization I had in mind 3 years ago is not the one that we should implement. So I think I should be very humble there. Plus I'm 52, so I'm probably not the one the most driven by today by data. But I believe it's a game changer indeed, and indeed it can also support innovation in many ways. I referred to client insight. I think here it's interesting because to innovate smartly, to be spot on, to reflect the expectations of your client, you better know them. So I think it's an interesting, to brief on innovation, you need data. You don't brief without data today. That's not the way it should work, at least. Whether it's surveys you make among a certain number of clients or it's data you get, but I don't think it works without this. Point one. Point two, I referred to health, transparency. I think a lot of tech now enables to more traceability, which is very important too. Second-hand for us is less of a topic, for Louis XIII maybe, but and to transparency as well. So I think Here also, so it's not directly data, but it's data you leverage through technology with a direct contact with the client. So I think it's also something which is interesting when it comes to data. But it's also obviously, you know, somehow we've been driven by data since the 60s when we started finance controlling. And finance has been driving data. What I find interesting today is that data is not only a finance matter, it's a marketing matter, it's a commercial matter. So I think it's enriching a lot the way we drive our business. And this is a kind of innovation in a way, also, I believe.
Definitely, and during this year's Super Bowl, spectators around the world have discovered this commercial. So it's with Serena Williams. It's called Inch by Inch. It is a reflection of internal culture, or?
Yes, I don't know if you know the film. It refers to a very famous speech from Al Pacino, Any Given Sunday, which is, I think everyone knows in the US at least. So they are, after the first half or second half, I forgot, American football, and Al Pacino is the coach, and they're losing, and he's kind of making a speech which is indeed very inspirational. And Serena is doing this speech, referring to our world and calling the Americans, which is a great moment because the Super Bowl is the #1 TV event. It's a moment of communion, I don't know how you say in English anyway, in the US. So it was, I think, quite relevant for that region. Is it us? Well, yes. If you take, for instance, Bruichladdich, which is our whiskey in Scotland, it's even in their tagline, inch by inch. And I think behind this there is a kind of maybe sense of humility, which sometimes is a weakness, because to dream, you know, it's not about being solely inch by inch, so we need to manage both, but it's also true that we believe in progress step by step, that we believe in the petit pas, you know, as we say in French. But I would say that probably behind the message, more than inch by inch, what reflects our culture is more, and it's a Rémy Martin advertising, it's the message and the internal mantra of Rémy Martin, which is very much reflecting, I think, our spirit as well, which is that somehow alone you go faster, but together you go further. And that's really what it is about. We believe that behind every individual success, there is a collective. And that's what it says, in fact. So I would more refer to this than inch by inch, but both are relevant, yeah.
Talking about recipe, do you have a recipe for the future? What is, according to you, the future of direct to consumer in the spirits industry? You mentioned data and digital as a way to connect better with your customers, new routes with e-commerce. So what's, according to you, the future of direct to consumer?
So data is a means, it's not the end as such, for sure. And it's very important to recall that, by the way, because very often we are led by tech or data, but no, it's to serve a purpose, it's to create value in the end, and that's what we should never forget about. Same when we do e-commerce, by the way. It's not just about doing business, it's about creating value. It's about an additional service to our clientele. So what is the future? I would say it's experiential, as I said. It's going to be more and more experiential. It's not solely data-driven, but digital is very involved. It's difficult for us, for instance, to immerse people in our world in cognac. Cognac is a 2-hour train plus 45 minutes another train or a car, so it's a long way to go. And with COVID, we might have less tourists than in the past. So how do we export this? How do we immerse people where they are? So boutiques, yes, but you're never going to open hundreds of boutiques. So digital is one of the answers. Immersing people in the cognac world through the film we shared. I think I wanted to share it because I think it's quite immersive, and I think it's one that works well. But then there are many other ways, of course. So that's one thing. Second, I think it's going to be about managing exclusivity, because digital is broadening the access to our brands, but at the same time we have to make sure we don't lose this sense of exclusivity, this sense of belonging. So, but through digital, there's a lot we can do. If you take China, where we are doing already 20% of our business. So I said 20% 3 years ago before COVID. I was lucky because COVID has been accelerated it. But if you take China, for instance, it's a lot about, in fact, exclusivity, but to the wider crowd. So it's a tension that we need to manage. I would say also it's going to be about testing and learning. So the good thing with digital is we don't know exactly what the future is made of. And I believe strongly in adapting quickly, in testing and learning. For us, it's difficult because, again, it takes so long to craft a product that when you launch it, you cannot fail. But with digital, you can test and learn much more faster than before, when you had to ship by boat a product that then had to pass the customs, that then had to go through the wholesaler, the retailer, the end client. Today, it goes quicker, and you take less risks because people are zapping a bit more as well. So, I think it's going to be a fantastic playground for us to test and learn ideas, including disruptive ones. So maybe it will lead to more innovation thanks to that. But it's a change of mindset also that we need to work on, which is not necessarily easy, but that I think digital is driving.
Thank you very much. It's been really, really interesting, and I would like now perhaps to take some questions from the audience. Margot, if you can pick up one.
Yes.
Pick a good one. Huh?
Actually, we have two. So if we have the time, we're going to do the two. So first one, could you please tell us more about how you build brand desirability?
Oh, that's a vast topic. Could take indeed the remaining 15 minutes. I think it's three things. It's not only the brand, by the way. First, you need a product to start with. And you need a product that is of outstanding quality. But this is the rationale. I'm ready to pay a high price because I know it's worth it. But the rationale will never unlock the pricing power. What will unlock the pricing power is the additional layers of desirability. And I think the second one is branding. So branding is unlocking the emotional. It's beyond the quality. It's a brand that resonates for me. Its values speak to me. Its universe is attractive to me. And I'm ready to pay even more because I'm not only rational. Why is, I'm not going to name brands, but in leather goods you have brands of equal quality which don't retail at the same price. And the difference is this, I believe personally. So branding is very important. And the third layer is the experience. And that's where the challenge is in our industry, because we sell in many kinds of stores, from the lousy one in a lousy street to the, this is the biggest challenge, and that's where I think digital is a fantastic unlocker. Because in fact, this is the one we potentially master the most, and this is the one meant to be the most visible. So the experience you offer, whether it's through exclusivity, money can't buy experiences we referred to, innovation, whatever, but it has to, what I like to say usually is it's not only about a product. We're selling more than a product today. And that's the store, at least, or the digital store, for me, is where the rational meets the emotional. So it's the crossing point of both, which is why I felt very lucky to start in a store. And that's what I call, but it's nothing academic, not worth it, but that's what I call the ramotional, where both meet, And I think it's very important not to ignore one of the three. So that's how we work on building. There are many other levels, of course, but these for me are the three main ones.
Thank you. That's a new recipe. Second one, thanks for this very interesting introduction. A question on consumer centricity. How are you achieving it today? How will you improve longer term?
I'm not saying we're achieving it full speed. First, I think the best way to achieve it is to make sure that you build a model that is fitting each of our brands. Because we have 14 brands. And each brand is really valuable, but they have a specific territory. And if you take Cointreau, which is aiming at quantity, it's a volume brand. And if you take Louis XIII, it's a very different perspective. So consumer centricity for Louis XIII is quite easy now. It's natural. First, we've built a business model that has retailized with private client directors, so we get the direct feedback from the clients. We have even inspired our model, organizational model from the high-end watches, you know, not at all from the industry for Louis XIII. So this is very disruptive and it's easy. If you take other brands like Cointreau or the Botanist or Argine, which are more volume-driven and whose aim is certainly not to sell directly to the end client. This wouldn't work. Client centricity for me is different. It's first about knowing who your client is. So we have a team which is, among others, focusing on marketing intelligence, which includes competition, but also clients' insights. And make sure our teams are nurtured with this, make sure they are more sensitive to this. But I think the other way, to come back to the topic of the day, is also having them, our teams, being all more digital savvy. Because again, digital is a great way to get to know more and to be more client-centric because you have access to so much. And that's why I believe in upskilling, in training. I think it's equally important to whatever recruitment you do or implementation you do. You need the organization to be not solely digitally driven, but to have digital in mind in everything they do. So that's something that is helping also for client centricity. And then, you know, it's, I'm back to my old days, but sending people to the stores so that they sell themselves and they see what I strongly believe in this. I spent 3 years in uniform selling to clients myself, and I strongly believe that you learn a lot. You don't need to go 3 years, but you learn a lot from this kind of experiences. That's also another way to create a more client-centric approach. And then it's starting asking ourselves every meeting, what would the client think of? So we are not Amazon. We don't have an empty chair, which is of a different color, but still we're trying to, again, not that we're there yet, but it's, I think, something that is very important if you want to achieve such.
Thank you.
Perhaps we have time for another one, right,
Yeah,
Margot?
we have others.
So cool.
How do you plan to accelerate your digital transformation? What organization do you have in place or plan to have to do so? I just said a bit about, you know, I just answered partly, but first, I'm not sure I like to talk, speaking in fact of transformation. Because it's not a question of transformation digital. It's now part of our world. I mean, it's like a store. It's like now it's classic communication, digital communication. I mean, it's 50+% of our business. So I don't think it's transformation anymore. Even though it's a transformation for us, we should not consider it as a topic of transformation. We should consider it as an inherent element of our business model. So I don't think it's about having a central team, which we did a few years ago, but we are learning on the fly. Of course, we need a central team, though, to work on the tools, to make sure that the skills and the upskilling of the organization and so on. But then, in fact, it's really about training and upskilling our teams, more broadly speaking. And you know what? It starts with the why, anyway. The most important in everything you do is to make sure people understand why we do things. And we always tend to forget the why. And when we wrote the strategy 3 years ago, actually I think I spent probably the first 20 minutes of the hour explaining the why to the teams, because I think it's critical. And same here. It shouldn't be scary. It shouldn't be perceived as something technical. It is not what it is. It leverages technical skills for some, but not solely. A great marketer can be a great digital marketer. It's really about also making sure people understand why we do things and reassuring ourselves that it's
something that is not so scary, not so myself. Sometimes I'm a bit scared now when I talk to my daughters and I see. Sometimes I'm a bit lost, but never mind. It's very important to understand anyway, and I think it's something that we tend to underestimate sometimes.
And as you said at the beginning, I mean, being a little bit space a little bit late compared to other spaces, I mean, allow you to leapfrog at some point and to really go to the best. So it's even a bigger change. So it brings, of course, opportunities, but it brings at the same time some change fears, which is I mean human. And but I think I'm really impressed by the creativity, and I think that digital is, as you say, the leveraging tech, but leveraging tech with the soul of a brand is sometimes complex. And I think that in your group, you're really working on the soul of the digital vision you have, and I think it makes a huge difference in the way to do things. And I think it's really impressive, and it's perhaps because you know why you do that you can bring this soul, and your team are bringing this soul inside, and yeah, I think it's a beginning of something, I'm sure.
Hopefully, you know, I hope it's the lièvre et la tortue, you know, but so, and the Tortuga wins in the end. So, but I think it's, you know, we want to go fast, but if you go too fast and if you don't embark the organization anyway, there will be no buy-in, and the risk is you lose faith, and I think that's the biggest risk. So we have to go fast to challenge ourselves clearly, and at the same time we need to make sure that the whole organization is up to speed.
Thank you. Talking about drive to store, how do you see the ROI of retail media?
Of retail media?
Yes.
So retail media is, what is it exactly? It's you don't know, or maybe you know?
Yeah.
I think maybe...
yeah, I think in this question, I imagine, I didn't ask for it, but retail media is really how to leverage on retailer data doing media campaigns for a brand. So it's how you collaborate with retailers to really leverage their data to...
So if you take the US, which is our #1 market, you're not allowed to talk to retailer, to make it clear. Again, it's to protect the end client. Brands are not entitled to push to consumption. So we can communicate, but we cannot directly leverage data. And so the US, for instance, it's a bit more critical. So for us, we felt like, in fact, the best way is doing it ourselves. In the US, we cannot, but elsewhere in the world, we can. That's why, for instance, we were the first group to say, we are going to open our own monobrand e-boutiques. You could say, oh my God, it's not going to be profitable, it's going to take time, it's a huge investment, blah, 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 which is true. But at the same time, you gather your own data, you get a lot of insights. It's a way to communicate on our brands and to immerse them in our universe. So I strongly believe that where we cannot do it, we cannot do it, but elsewhere, it is worth it doing it ourselves. And then in some countries, of course, we do value, because the question was also, do we value retail? And for sure we do. Again, myself having started in retail, I think there is no best place to get the insights. So for instance, when we visit markets, it sounds anecdotal, but it is not. Before COVID, I used to go to market visit, travel like crazy, and I realized I was spending, in fact, hours in a room looking at PowerPoint slides. Now, in fact, we do the PowerPoint remotely, but when I travel, I do market visits. We meet the retailers, and we are allowed, us as professionals, to talk to them. We cannot get their data, and there's so much you get in talking to the people from the field. Our teams as well, of course. So I think it's also about making sure we are bottom up enough to get the insights from the base. But it's our challenge is to gather more and more so as to be better targeted in our communication.
Okay, thank you. What do you anticipate as the biggest obstacles to pioneer digital transformation for the spirits industry?
So I think this comes back a bit to the first question, the challenges we have, and to make it very short, I think again it's our relationship to time, which is not easy to manage together with the speed required and the agility required in digital. But it's fantastic if we combine both. I think we can be a best of a kind, because really a one of a kind approach at least. The second is really the legal obstacle, making it difficult, as I just referred to in the US. I think these are the two main obstacles that we need to deal with.
And perhaps a last one, and we will be at the end.
Yes. Has your company considered integrating more emerging technologies such as NFTs, the metaverse, chatbots into its strategy?
So it's a lot in one, because I don't consider them the same way. So NFTs, yes. And we have tested already. We've had a great success with a limited edition on 1738 in the US with Usher, the singer. And so, and we saw the value, because it's a fantastic PR impact. It's creating a scarcity. It's valorizing the products. So it's super interesting. Plus, with NFT, you have this real sense of property, which is very interesting and opening, I think, a number of doors, which is crazy. So NFT, I'm a strong believer, and we're working on it. I believe it should go for more than just limited editions or initiatives you've seen so far. I think it's potentially a way to go as far as being real loyalty programs, using them as a... So anyway, that's point one. And metaverse, I don't know. I don't know, because we're testing the water. Not that we are ignorant of it, but well, first, the quality of what you can do is not yet, but it's going to change, and it's going to be qualitative soon. But I think we have. I would love a metaverse of our real world. So, you know, I think that creating a fictive world is not what we are made of. But I think there are ways to leverage what's happening on the metaverse to better enhance who we are, because we are so much terroir rooted, and the terroir, you cannot export it within the product, but you cannot export it. So how do you enhance in the digital sphere what the terroir is made of? And the terroir is not only the soil, it's the climate, it's people. So I think there are ways to think about it, but probably not just the metaverse for the sake of the metaverse. It has to be meaningful for us. Chatbot, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think it's going to replace so many of our jobs in our business. But can we, maybe one day, you know, it would be interesting to brief an agency. I don't know. But maybe even for the agencies to come back to after the brief, I don't know. Today the trials I've made are not yet full speed convincing, but you see it progressing so quickly that you never know. I hope it's not going to go too far, but my daughters would say I'm very old in saying that, but still it's, I think, it's at the same time an opportunity and a risk. So, because we want to master our message, and it's already difficult today because the communities are speaking of your products. So it has already, I don't know how you say, escaped from the communication we master now. It's already embodied. So at some point we have to make sure we master this. Not that we want to control it, but we master it.
Thank you very much. It's been amazing spending this time with you. So thank you very much for your vision, your sharings, and see you soon. And thank you for your energy and everything you bring in this industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.